Give your savings to your brother for his wedding, or get out. My mother said it like she was asking me to pass the salt, not hand over every dollar I had spent 7 years building. I'm Mia Parker, 29 years old, and I had exactly $48,600 saved in an account nobody in my family was supposed to know about. That money was not for vacations, not for designer dresses, not for an open bar so my brother could impress people who never once asked how I was doing. It was my escape plan, my future business fund, my proof that I could build something without begging anyone in that house for permission. My brother sat across from me with that lazy smile he always wore when someone else was about to pay for his mistakes. My dad looked down at his plate. My sister texted me under the table, "Loser, just help him for once." Then my mom leaned forward and said, "You're selfish, Mia. Your brother deserves a beautiful wedding." I remember smiling, not because it was funny, but because in that moment I finally understood something. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a bank account with a heartbeat. So I stood up, pushed my chair in, and said, "Fine, I'll leave you something." By the next morning, there was one envelope taped to their front door. When they opened it, the house erupted into screaming, crying, and my father calling me again and again, begging me to undo what I had done. Before I tell you what was inside that envelope, and why my family panicked the second they read the first page, tell me, what time is it for you right now, and where are you watching from? I'm curious how far this story will travel. My family had always called my brother the future of the Parker name, which was funny because most of his future had been financed by other people. His name was Ethan Parker, 32 years old, charming when strangers were watching and completely helpless when bills arrived. My mother, Patricia Parker, treated him like a prince who had been tragically born into a middle-class home instead of a kingdom. My father, Harold Parker, had spent years pretending neutrality was the same thing as fairness. My younger sister, Chloe Parker, followed whatever side promised her the most attention. And me? I was the practical one, the dependable one, the one who remembered insurance deadlines, repaired family passwords, drove people to appointments, and somehow became dramatic whenever I asked why nobody did the same for me. I worked in Charlotte, North Carolina, as a payroll compliance analyst for a logistics company. It sounds boring until you understand what that job taught me. Numbers do not lie, but people lie around numbers all the time. I reviewed wage records, deductions, reimbursement claims, benefit documents, and vendor payments. I knew how to find patterns. I knew how to notice when someone called a personal expense family support. I knew what it looked like when emotion was used to hide exploitation. That was why I had spent years quietly tracking every dollar I had been pressured to give Ethan. Not because I planned revenge. At first, I just needed proof for myself that I wasn't imagining it. $400 when he forgot rent. $1,200 when his truck needed repairs. $3,000 when he launched a fitness coaching business that lasted 11 days. $5,000 when Mom said his credit score was too fragile for him to handle consequences. Every time I said no, there was a speech about family. Every time Ethan failed, there was a group effort to soften his landing. Every time I succeeded, there was silence. My savings became the one part of my life they couldn't touch. I was building it for a small bookkeeping studio I wanted to open, a place where small businesses could get honest payroll help without being overcharged or ignored. I had a folder on my laptop titled Mia Parker Consulting. I had a logo draft, a business plan, a lease estimate for a tiny office near South End, and a wait list of 3 local businesses I had helped after hours. I had hope. Then Ethan got engaged to a woman named Brianna Cole, and suddenly my hope became, in my mother's words, available family resources. The wedding started as a backyard ceremony, then it became a vineyard, then it became a ballroom. Then it needed imported flowers, a live jazz trio, custom lighting, and a rehearsal dinner that cost more than my first car. Every week, Mom announced another upgrade like she was narrating a royal coronation. "Ethan deserves one perfect day," she kept saying. I wanted to ask when my perfect day was scheduled, but I already knew the answer. Mine had been postponed indefinitely so his could sparkle. The demand happened on a Sunday evening at my parents' house. I had gone there because Mom said Dad wanted a peaceful family dinner. That should have warned me. Peaceful dinners in my family usually meant they had already decided something and needed me trapped at a table to hear it. Ethan and Brianna were there. Chloe was there, scrolling through her phone and smirking every few seconds. Mom had printed wedding inspiration photos and spread them around the dining room like evidence in a trial. After dessert, she folded her hands and said, "Mia, we need you to be mature about something." I looked at the papers, then at Ethan. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "The final vendor payments are due in 10 days, Mom continued. "Your father and I have contributed everything we can, and Ethan has already stretched himself." Stretched himself was generous. Ethan had contributed a deposit he borrowed from Dad. "How much are you short?" I asked. Mom looked relieved, like I had already agreed. 40,000. I almost laughed. "No." The room changed instantly. Mom's face hardened. Dad exhaled through his nose. Chloe looked up from her phone, suddenly entertained. Ethan leaned back and said, "Come on, Mia. What else are you saving for? You don't even have kids. You're not married. You sit in spreadsheets all day." There it was. Not a request. A verdict. I said, "My savings are for my business." Ethan snorted. "Your little side hustle? Be serious." Mom's voice sharpened. "Your brother's wedding is once in a lifetime." "So is my future," I said. Chloe typed something. A second later, my phone buzzed under the table. Her message said, "You're such a loser. No wonder nobody wants to marry you." I stared at it for 3 seconds, then placed my phone face up beside my plate. Mom saw it. She didn't correct Chloe. Dad saw it. He looked away. That hurt more than the words. Mom stood and pointed toward the hallway. "Then you can get out. If you won't support this family, you don't need to enjoy the benefits of it." Benefits. I thought about every bill I had paid, every crisis I had solved, every birthday where Ethan got envelopes of cash and I got advice about being less sensitive. Something inside me went very still. I said, "Okay." Mom blinked. "Okay? I'll leave." Ethan smiled wider. "Finally." I picked up my purse, but before I left, I turned back and said, "You asked for my savings. I'm going to give you something much more valuable." Mom rolled her eyes. "Drama." I smiled. "No. Documentation." Nobody understood what I meant. That was the best part. I drove home without crying, which surprised me. My apartment was 15 minutes away, on the 3rd floor of a brick building near a noisy intersection where delivery trucks passed all night. It wasn't glamorous, but every piece of it was mine. The second I locked the door behind me, my hand started shaking. Not from fear, from the kind of anger that feels too clean to be messy. I opened my laptop, pulled up my financial records, and stared at 7 years of transfers, screenshots, emails, and text messages. There were so many moments I had minimized because they were easier to survive that way. The Christmas when Mom told me not to embarrass Ethan by giving him too small a gift, so I paid his overdue phone bill and received a scented candle from the clearance aisle. The time Dad asked me to co-sign a small loan for Ethan's equipment, then told me not to mention it because your mother worries. The time Chloe borrowed my car, scratched the bumper, and told everyone I was lying for attention. The time Ethan called me at midnight from a bar parking lot and said, "Don't be a nerd, just send me 500 until Friday." Friday never came. I created a spreadsheet called Family Financial Pattern. Then I changed the title to Parker Family Contributions Documented. I wasn't making a diary anymore. I was making a case. My best friend, Dana Brooks, called around 11:30 p.m. Dana was a paralegal at a small estate law firm, the kind of woman who could hear one sentence and know whether you needed comfort, coffee, or a witness. "You're too quiet," she said when I answered. "What happened?" I told her everything. The demand, the insult, Chloe's text, Dad's silence. When I finished, Dana didn't gasp or tell me to calm down. She said, "Please tell me you still have copies of the loan documents." "All of them." "And the messages?" "Most." "Good. Do not delete anything." "And Mia?" "Yeah." "Check whether your name is still attached to anything for Ethan." My stomach dropped. I had forgotten. 2 years earlier, Dad had asked me to sign as a guarantor on a temporary vendor credit line Ethan used for his event rental side business. Ethan claimed he was going to rent luxury chairs and photo booths for local parties. The business collapsed in 6 months, but the credit line stayed open. Dad told me it had been closed. I believed him because back then, I still wanted to believe my father's voice meant safety. I logged into the old portal with a password I had saved. My screen loaded slowly, then showed an active balance. Not huge, but active. Worse, there was a pending increase request submitted 3 days earlier. My name was still attached. Ethan had tried to expand credit using my signature history. I sat frozen, reading the screen again and again. That was when anger became strategy. The next morning, I called the credit company before work. I verified my identity, requested immediate removal from any future authorization, disputed the pending increase, and asked for a written confirmation that no new credit could be extended under my guarantee without my direct consent. The representative sounded bored until I asked for the fraud prevention department. Then she became very awake. By lunch, I had sent copies of my driver's license, original guarantee form, and a written statement. By 4 p.m., the pending increase was frozen. By 5:30 p.m., my phone had 13 missed calls from Dad. I didn't answer. Then Mom texted, "What did you do?" I stared at the message and felt the first small spark of satisfaction. Not revenge yet, just gravity. Actions finally meeting consequences. That night, Dana came over with takeout, a yellow legal pad, and the kind of expression that meant she had already built 3 possible battle plans in her head. "We are not going nuclear," she said. "We are going accurate." I liked that. Accurate was better than angry. Accurate could not be dismissed as emotional. We spent 4 hours organizing everything. Transfers to Ethan, receipts for family expenses I had covered, screenshots of Mom demanding money, Chloe's insults, Dad's request for me to sign the old credit paperwork, the active account, the pending increase. Dana helped me write a formal letter revoking permission for my name, income, credit, and employment information to be used in any financial application connected to Ethan, my parents, or any wedding vendor. I sent it certified. Then I contacted the ballroom where Ethan's reception was scheduled. I didn't make accusations. I simply asked whether my name appeared on any payment guarantee, vendor backup, or emergency billing authorization. The coordinator hesitated. "You are listed as a family financial contact," she said. My jaw tightened. I had never agreed to that. "Please remove me immediately," I said, "and send written confirmation." There was silence. Then she said, "That may affect the final payment terms." "I understand. The remaining balance must be secured by Friday. Then the person getting married should secure it." After we hung up, I sat there staring at the wall. My family had not only demanded my savings, they had already been positioning me as the safety net without telling me. The envelope began forming in my mind that night. Not a dramatic letter filled with tears. Not a speech begging to be loved. A clean, organized packet. Facts, dates, amounts, confirmations, boundaries. The kind of truth that could sit silently on a doorstep and still shake a house apart. For the next 6 days, my family tried every tactic except accountability. Mom started with guilt. A mother should never have to beg her daughter to care about her brother. Then came shame. People will ask why you refuse to help. Then fear. You may need us one day. Dad tried a softer approach, which somehow hurt more. Mia, your mother is emotional. Just help this once, and we'll sort everything out later. Later was my family's favorite cemetery. That was where promises went to die. Ethan sent one message. You're really going to ruin my wedding over money? I replied, no. You tried to build your wedding on my money. There's a difference. He didn't respond after that. Chloe posted a story of herself holding a bridesmaid dress with the caption, "Some people hate seeing others happy." I took a screenshot and added it to the file. By then, my plan had expanded beyond the old credit line. I checked everything. My credit report, my bank alerts, my tax documents, my mail forwarding settings. I changed passwords, froze my credit, removed my parents from my emergency contacts, and updated beneficiaries on my retirement account. Every step felt like cutting a string tied around my ribs. Dana reviewed the envelope before I sealed it. Are you sure? She asked. Once they see this, they can't pretend anymore. That's the point. Inside the envelope were 6 sections. First, a printed summary of every documented dollar I had given or covered for Ethan since I was 22. The total was $31,840, not counting groceries, rides, missed work, or emotional labor, because I wanted the number clean. Second, screenshots of messages where Mom and Dad framed my help as duty while calling my own goals unrealistic. Third, proof that my name had been listed as a financial contact for the wedding venue without my consent. Fourth, confirmation that I had removed myself from Ethan's old credit line and blocked the pending increase. Fifth, a formal notice stating that I would not contribute 1 cent toward the wedding and that any attempt to use my name, income, credit, employer, or savings would be treated as unauthorized. Sixth, one short personal note. It said, "You told me to give my savings or get out. I got out. You told me I was selfish. I protected myself. You told me family means sacrifice. I agree. So today I am sacrificing the version of me who kept paying to be mistreated." Dana read that line 3 times. Then she nodded. Leave it. I drove to my parents' house early Saturday morning. The neighborhood was still quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every small sound feel illegal. Their porch light was on. Mom had hung a white ribbon wreath on the front door for the upcoming wedding, as if the house itself had joined the celebration. I stood there with the envelope in my hand, looking at the place where I had learned to be useful before I learned to be loved. For a moment, I almost softened. Then I remembered Chloe's text. Loser. I remembered Ethan asking what else I was saving for, as if a single woman's future was community property. I remembered Dad looking away. I taped the envelope to the doorbell camera so they couldn't miss it, then stepped back. The envelope had 3 words written across the front. Read before calling. Then I left. I didn't speed. I didn't cry. I drove to a coffee shop near Freedom Park, ordered an iced latte I barely tasted, and waited. At 8:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Mom. At 8:18, Dad. At 8:19, Dad again. At 8:20, Chloe texted, "What the hell is wrong with you?" At 8:23, Ethan called twice. At 8:26, Mom sent a voice message. I didn't play it. At 8:31, Dad sent a text that said, "Mia, Answer me right now. This is serious. I typed back. It became serious when you used my name without permission. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then Dad called. I answered on speaker but said nothing. In the background, I heard Mom crying, Chloe shouting, and Ethan saying, "She can't do this. She can't just pull out." Dad's voice came through thin and panicked. "Mia, please. The venue is demanding a new guarantee by noon. The credit line is frozen. Your mother is beside herself." I looked out the coffee shop window at people walking dogs, jogging, living normal Saturday mornings that did not involve financial ambushes disguised as family love. "Then Ethan can pay for his wedding," I said. Dad lowered his voice. "He can't." There it was. The truth. So small. So late. I said, "I know." Then I hung up. The chaos did not stay inside my parents' house. By noon, it had reached the wedding party. By 2, it had reached Brianna's parents. By dinner, it had reached relatives who had spent months praising my mother for planning the event of the year. I knew because my phone became a museum of panic. Aunt Carol, Dad's older sister, sent one message. "Is it true they put your name on wedding paperwork?" I replied with one screenshot. She called me immediately. Aunt Carol had never been my favorite relative, mostly because she had a talent for asking uncomfortable questions at exactly the wrong time. That day, it became useful. "Mia," she said slowly, "your father told the family you volunteered to help with vendor security." I laughed once, without humor. "Of course he did." "Did you?" "No." Silence. Then she said, "Send me what you can." I sent her the clean summary, not the emotional note. Within an hour, the family group chat that had been used to mock me became very quiet. Mom tried to regain control by rewriting the story. She texted, "Mia is confused and lashing out because she feels left out." Aunt Carol replied, "Patricia, did you list her as a financial contact without consent?" No one answered for 14 minutes. Then Chloe wrote, "Why is everyone attacking Mom? Mia always makes herself the victim." I replied for the first time in the group chat. "Chloe, you called me a loser because I would not surrender my savings. Would you like me to post that screenshot here too?" Chloe left the chat. That was the first real crack. The second came from Brianna's father, Mr. Cole, who apparently did not enjoy learning that the groom's family had been leaning on an uninformed sister to secure unpaid balances. He requested a private meeting with Ethan and my parents that evening. Dana heard this through a mutual friend who worked at the ballroom. "The Coles are furious," she told me, "not because of you, because they think your family misrepresented their ability to pay." I sat on my couch, holding the phone with both hands. I didn't want to hurt Brianna. "You didn't," Dana said. "Your family built a stage out of lies. You just stopped standing under it." The following Monday, Ethan appeared at my apartment without warning. I saw him through the peephole, hair messy, tie loosened, face pale with the rage of a man who had never been told no long enough for it to become real. "Mia!" he snapped, knocking again. "Open the door." I didn't. "You embarrassed me in front of Brianna's parents." I spoke through the door. "You embarrassed yourself by spending money you didn't have." "You're jealous." "Of what?" He hesitated. "Of my life." That almost made me sad. Not because it was true, but because he needed it to be true. If I was jealous, then he didn't have to be responsible. If I was bitter, then he didn't have to be dishonest. If I was dramatic, then nobody had to ask why a 32-year-old man needed his sister's savings to get married. "Ethan," I said, "I have records. I have messages. I have proof. Do not come here again unless you are ready to apologize." He kicked the bottom of my door. Not hard enough to break it, but loud enough that my neighbor opened her door. "Everything okay?" she called. Ethan straightened immediately. That was Ethan's magic trick. Threatening in private, charming in public. "Fine," he said, forcing a smile. I opened my door just enough to look at my neighbor and said, "Thank you. I may need a witness if he keeps kicking my door." Ethan's face went red. He left. That night, I filed a written incident report with my apartment office, not because I wanted drama, but because I was done letting private intimidation vanish without a paper trail. The week before the wedding, the ballroom reduced Ethan's package. No premium bar, no floral ceiling installation, no live jazz trio, no late-night food truck. The guest count was cut by almost 40%. Mom sent me one final message before the ceremony. "I hope you are proud. You destroyed your brother's dream." I replied, "No, I stopped funding it." Then I blocked her for 24 hours, because peace sometimes needs a password change. I did not attend Ethan's wedding. That was the story my family wanted to tell. Mia refused to come. Mia abandoned us. Mia made everything about money. But the real reason I stayed away was simple. I was no longer willing to sit in a room where people expected my silence to decorate their lies. Dana and I went hiking that morning instead. Halfway up the trail, my phone started buzzing even though most of my family was blocked. Aunt Carol sent a photo from the ceremony. The decorations were still beautiful, but smaller than planned. Rows of empty chairs had been removed. The flower arch was simple. The reception tables were missing the dramatic centerpieces Mom had bragged about for months. Under the photo, Aunt Carol wrote, "It's still a wedding. Funny how survival looks less expensive than pride." I smiled for the first time that day. Then another message came in, this time from an unknown number. It was Brianna. "Mia, this is Brianna. I'm sorry for how this happened. I didn't know they had involved you financially. I hope someday we can talk." I stared at the message for a long time. I had expected anger. I had prepared for blame. I had not prepared for decency. I replied, "Thank you. I hope today brings you clarity and peace." I meant it. The wedding itself happened, but the reception reportedly unraveled during speeches. Dad, maybe from stress or guilt, did not give the proud father-style toast Mom had written for him. Instead, he said something like, "Marriage requires honesty, especially about money." Aunt Carol later told me the room went so silent you could hear forks pause midair. Ethan looked furious. Mom cried in the restroom. Chloe tried to post happy photos, but guests were already whispering. The envelope had done what years of my pleading could not. It changed the audience. My family could ignore me when I was alone at the dinner table. They could not ignore documented truth once other people started asking questions. 2 days after the wedding, Dad came to my apartment. This time, he texted first. "May I come by? Alone?" I almost said no. Then I decided I could hear him without surrendering to him. We met in the lobby, not my apartment. Boundaries are easier to keep when you don't invite old patterns into your living room. Dad looked older than he had the week before. His shoulders were rounded. His eyes were red. He held an envelope too, smaller than mine. "I'm not here to ask you to fix anything," he said. "Good." He swallowed. "I'm here because I read everything. All of it. The transfers, the messages, the credit line. I told myself I was keeping peace for years, but I was really letting your mother and Ethan drain you because you were easier to count on." I said nothing. Not because I wasn't moved, but because I had learned not to reward the first honest sentence like it erased the years before it. Dad held out the envelope. "This is a cashier's check. It's not everything. It's 10,000. I know it doesn't repair what happened, but it is the first payment. I'm going to repay what I personally pressured you into covering." My throat tightened despite myself. I did not take it right away. Does Mom know? No. Does Ethan? No. Then why now? Dad looked down. Because when the venue called me and said your name had been removed, my first reaction was anger. Then I realized my anger was because I had been depending on something I had no right to use. That sentence mattered. I took the envelope, but I did not hug him. He noticed. Pain crossed his face, but he nodded like he deserved it. Your mother wants to talk, he said. I'm not ready. I understand. No, I said quietly. You're beginning to. He accepted that. Before he left, he said, I'm sorry, Mia. It was not enough, but it was real enough to stand on its own without me having to comfort him. That was new. 3 months later, my life looked smaller from the outside and bigger from the inside. I had not opened a fancy office yet. I had not become rich overnight. No movie ending arrived with dramatic music and everyone clapping. What I had was better. I had control. I used part of Dad's repayment and part of my untouched savings to officially register Mia Parker Payroll and Books, a small consulting service for local contractors, salons, and food trucks that needed help cleaning up payroll mistakes. My first office was not an office at all. It was a shared desk in a co-working space with loud air conditioning and terrible parking. But my name was on the paperwork. My name, used with my consent. That felt powerful in a way I cannot fully explain. Dana helped me create client agreements. Aunt Carol referred 2 business owners. Even Brianna, months after the wedding, sent me a quiet referral from a friend starting a boutique. She and Ethan were still married, but from what I heard, their first months were not easy. When someone builds a wedding on image, reality becomes an uninvited guest at the honeymoon. Ethan never apologized. He sent one message through Dad saying he didn't appreciate being publicly humiliated. I told Dad, accountability feels like humiliation when pride is all someone has. Chloe eventually unblocked me to send a long paragraph about how I had changed. I replied, yes. Then I blocked her again, not out of hatred, but because not every door needs to stay open just because someone knocks loudly. Mom was the hardest part. She tried everything except a clean apology. She sent old family photos. She mailed a birthday card with "We miss our Mia" written inside, as if I had wandered off instead of been pushed out. She left a voicemail crying about how lonely the house felt after the wedding. I listened once. Then I saved it. Not as evidence this time, but as a reminder that guilt can sound a lot like love when you are still healing. Finally, 6 months after the envelope, she asked Dad to arrange a meeting. I agreed to 30 minutes in a public cafe. When she walked in, she looked smaller than I remembered. For most of my life, my mother's disappointment had felt like weather, something huge and unavoidable. Sitting across from her with my own business card in my wallet, I realized she was just a person. A flawed person. A person who had confused control with care for so long that she no longer knew how to love without assigning roles. She cried. She said she had been scared Ethan would look like a failure. She said she pushed me because I was stronger. That word almost made me laugh. Stronger had always meant, you can survive more damage, so we will give you more. I told her, I was not stronger. I was less protected. She covered her mouth and looked away. For the first time, she did not argue. She apologized, but I did not move back into the family system just because the apology arrived. Forgiveness is not a reset button. Forgiveness does not mean handing the same people the same weapon and hoping they hold it differently. I told her I was willing to have limited contact, no financial conversations, no insults, no emergency demands, no using the word family as a receipt for my obedience. She nodded, but I could tell she did not fully understand. That was fine. My boundary did not require her full understanding. It required my consistency. A year after the envelope, my business had 12 regular clients. I still worked my full-time job while building it, because healing does not pay rent on inspirational quotes. But every invoice I sent felt like a brick in a house I was building for myself. Dad kept making monthly repayments. Sometimes he added notes. For the truck repair I pressured you about. For the birthday money you gave Ethan. For the years I stayed quiet. I saved some, invested some, and used some to take myself to dinner on the anniversary of the day I walked out. I ordered dessert first. It felt childish and sacred. People ask me if I regret leaving the envelope. I don't. I regret not believing myself sooner. I regret every time I confused being useful with being loved. I regret every dollar I gave, hoping it would finally purchase respect from people committed to discounting me. But I do not regret the envelope. That envelope did not destroy my family. It revealed the terms they had been living by. It showed me that some people only call you selfish when they lose access to your sacrifice. It taught me that peace without respect is just silence with better lighting. And it taught me that leaving is not always abandonment. Sometimes leaving is the first honest act of love you give yourself. I still love my family in a distant, careful way. I love them from across boundaries. I love them without financing their denial. I love them without shrinking my future to make Ethan look taller. And maybe that is the lesson I want someone to hear. Family should not require you to empty your savings, your spirit, or your self-respect to prove you belong. Real family does not demand your future as payment for acceptance. Real love does not call your dreams selfish just because they are not useful to someone else. If your family only values you when you are giving, fixing, covering, rescuing, or staying quiet, then the most loving thing you can do may be to stop participating in your own erasure. My name is Mia Parker. I did not give my brother my savings for his wedding. I left one envelope instead. And for the first time in my life, everyone finally had to read the truth before they could rewrite it. So let me ask you this. If your parents demanded your future to fund the golden child's dream, would you hand it over to keep the peace? Or would you protect yourself even if the whole house called you selfish? And where do you think the line is between sacrificing for family and destroying yourself for people who would never do the same for you?